Well done, RMC, well done, because this whole entire hype over the last few weeks of what they're about to announce, I think everyone can agree that the Wild Moose Family Coaster looks terrific. And I'm going to share all my thoughts about this coaster concept with you, as well as share a few parks where I think could really benefit from adding one. But most importantly, later in the video, I'm going to share something that I really haven't seen that many people talk about, this design and how it could benefit your favorite RMC coaster in the future, as well as other record-breaking coasters coming from RMC in the future. My name is Brandon, and you know what to do, and that is keep riding coasters. And this announcement from RMC really is a solid announcement because this type of coaster can cater to pretty much anyone. RMC has developed a whole entire new concept on a modern family Wild Mouse coaster. So instead of having the individual cars of 4 riders, you're going to have a whole entire train full of riders that can ride together as a family or a whole group of friends. Again, this is really a cool announcement. Plus, when you watch the POV and see the layout of the ride, there's a lot of cool RMC elements that you're really gonna hopefully get some airtime out of. But overall, again, this thing is a solid addition to RMC's lineup of coasters, and I do not see how it's possible that the Wild Moose Family Coaster is not going to become a huge success for RMC, just because pretty much any park out there in the entire world could benefit from a ride just like this. But what I love most about this, I think, and it's extremely smart on behalf of RMC, is that this layout can fit in the same footprint as any other Wild Mouse coasters in the world today. That is a game changer, and that's extremely smart because a lot of these older Wild Mouse coasters, they're getting up there in age. So will they be at their respective parks in 10 to 15 years from now? Who knows? But we just saw Busch Gardens Tampa remove their Wild Mouse coaster. So now it goes to the question is Busch Gardens Tampa about to open up a new family Wild Moose RMC coaster? I would love that. Pair that with Iron Gwazi? That's just a great move, again, in my opinion. So let's talk about this ride real quickly here, because the footprint of it is 80 feet wide and 150 feet deep. And again, that's a very small parcel of land, so any park could really build this, especially with the height of only 50 feet tall. Rocky Mountain Construction really did develop a fantastic layout for a brand new family style Wild Mouse coaster, because you're still going to get some really cool turns on this ride, as well as a helix, a couple quick drops. But let's talk about these trains real quick, because these trains are very, very intriguing, because if you look closely, they're not your typical RMC trains. That is because each row consists of its own car. So this train concept is totally unique for RMC because they've never developed a train like this, because usually you have 4 riders per car and each train consists of 5 or 6 cars. Not only do these trains look awesome, but you're going to notice that they're going to be able to maneuver much more tighter curves due to each row consisting of its own car, making up of 6 different cars for one train. So you and 11 other riders are going to be able to enjoy this ride in what looks to be the most comfortable train that you'll ever find on an RMC coaster. That's because, yes, these are T-bar restraints. And that is a huge thing in our industry, especially when it comes to RMC, because these are going to be very comfortable, because you're not going to hopefully have the sidebars that's going to, hurt you when you move left and right real quick, or at least bother you a little bit. But these, again, these look more free, and these trains don't have sides to them as well, which is just going to enhance your riding experience even more. So I'm actually more intrigued by these trains than I am for the actual Wild Mouse Family Coaster. Which leaves me with this question: could we see these trains be placed on any current RMC coaster out there? if a park wanted to spend the money on it, because I would love to be able to ride Steel Vengeance or Iron Gwazi with trains just like this. Just imagine the visuals, let alone the more comfortable restraints. And even if these trains are not going to be able to be placed on current RMC mega coasters, maybe this is at least a step in the right direction for RMC when it comes to development of their next train for their larger scale coasters, because I think it's pretty obvious there's really not that many people who enjoy a RMC train. Obviously the rides are fantastic, but the train itself is probably the weakest part of the actual attraction. So by offering a train that has the T-bar restraints, the open air sides are completely open, as well as each row's on its own little chassis, like that is fantastic. Again, I'm very intrigued by this. Now, as far as the parks that I think could benefit from having a Wild Moose family Wild Mouse coaster, I already said Busch Gardens Tampa. That makes a ton of sense, but I can also see a few other parks, something like maybe Alton Towers. I know they're building a brand new indoor coaster, and that's not been confirmed yet by the manufacturer, like who's building it, but that building's pretty large, so maybe something like this could fit inside of it. That would be really cool, and I know there's a lot of rumors going around the Alton Towers community about that, so it would be very interesting to see how that plays out. I would also love to see this be built at the Great Escape. We already know that Six Flags and RMC really enjoy working together, and we already know that the Great Escape just announced that their bobsled coaster is going to get retired and removed after this year, which frees up a massive plot of land for what? Maybe a new trash can, or 2 trash cans, or maybe even 3. But the good news is, I really do feel as if the Great Escape is going to be getting a new roller coaster for 2024, and I think it's a pretty safe bet to assume that this type of coaster could very well be making its way to the Lake George area of New York for Great Escape in 2024. And with the relationship with Fun Spot and RMC, I think this could be a huge deal down in Orlando if this would open up at Fun Spot Orlando or Kissimmee as their next roller coaster for one of those parks. Again, these rides can fit anywhere. I'm sure RMC really wants to make this to be as affordable as possible and outside of the Fun Spot parks. But what about Valley Fair? We already know that their Wild Mouse coaster is an Aero one. It's been there for quite some time. Maybe they don't replace it with this, but who says the park can't have 2 of these? You know, have the Wild Mouse be at Valley Fair, but then in the front of the park, build something like this where the old Dinosaurs Alive used to be located. And since you're watching this because you love RMC, that also means you love airtime. And if you're looking to maximize your airtime while you're riding your next roller coaster, then you have to check out my Keep Riding Coasters gear store, where you're going to find some really cool coaster merch for you to wear during your next adventure at a theme park riding roller coasters. And you can find the link to my merch in the description of this video, and for the next few days you can save 15% off the merch. And as for the last park, and while it is kind of a wild card, but what about Hershey Park? We already know they just built Wildcats Revenge, so the relationship is there. And we also know that their current Wild Mouse coaster is pretty old and it's right next to the water park. So I can definitely see this Wild Mouse coaster getting removed completely for a boardwalk expansion at some point. And Hershey Park offers a ton of room in the front of the park near Candemonia. So adding a roller coaster like this up to the front of the park, in my opinion, again, is a no-brainer because you're taking the old Wild Mouse coaster, removing it, expanding the water park, but then you're going to add yet another new coaster right in the front entrance area that's going to cater to families instead of just having a giant 210-foot tall B&M hypercoaster there. Overall, good job RMC. This new attraction looks great and it's going to get picked up by parks left and right. I just have a really good feeling about it because the price point, the lack of real estate that it really takes up, because this thing is a very small footprint, as well as the guest satisfaction. This is going to create memories, and this right here is going to create so many more coaster enthusiasts, which is great for you and I, as well as our wonderful community. With all of that being said, you guys know what to do. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments, as well as what parks you feel as if could benefit from a ride like this. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to smile today, think positive, and of course, keep riding coasters.